The writings of Abraham, chapter 58. Therefore I took Sarai and Lot and all my family, and all Lot's family, and all these souls who had joined us in and in Haran who would come, and we departed out of the land of Canaan. But my father had departed not from his idolatry, wherefore he remained in the land of Haran, and Nahor also remained with some others who departed not from the truth of the living Elohim. The writings of Abraham, chapter 59. When we had come into the land of Canaan, I built an altar in the plains of Moreh, and offered sacrifice unto Yahweh. And Yahweh appeared unto me and said, This is the land which I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee forever. I will make thy seed like the stars of the Shamayim, and I will give unto them for an inheritance all the land which belongeth unto the Canaanites. For surely I will destroy them from off the face, for the land when their wickedness is full. Wherefore I praise Yahweh for his favor, and we departed from that place and journeyed toward Bethel. The writings of Abraham, chapter 60. And when I reached Hebron, I tarried there for 2 years, but the famine again waxed great in the land. Hearing that there was no famine in Mitsrayim, I determined to journey into that land, remembering the word of Yahweh unto me in that I should declare the mysteries of my Elohim in the land of Mitsrayim. And behold, Yahweh baraked us on our journey, that it was made light unto us. And we journeyed until we reached the Kirmion, one of the branches of the river of Mitsrayim, where we rested from our journey for a season. And here the famine was not so severe. But remembering the word of Yahweh my Elohim unto me, when we were recovered from our journey, I determined to move forward across the 7 branches of the river of Mitsrayim into the heart of the country of the Mitsrites. The writings of Abraham, chapter 61. But on the night before I entered into Mitsrayim, I dreamed a dream. And behold, in my dream I saw a cedar and a palm tree, and the branches of the palm tree were wrapped around the cedar. Suddenly a group of men approached, seeking to cut down the cedar and leave the palm tree to stand alone. But the palm tree cried out, saying, Cut not down the cedar, for whosoever seeketh to fell it shall find the curse of Elohim resting upon him. So the men desisted, and the cedar was spared by the act of the palm tree. The writings of Abraham, chapter 62. When the dream was ended, I awoke from my sleep and wondered at it. Wherefore I went before Yahweh in prayer and besought him, saying, O Yahweh, show me the interpretation of this dream which I have had this night. And Yahweh said unto me, Behold, Sarai thy wife is a beautiful woman to look upon above all the women of the earth. Therefore it shall come to pass that when the Mitsrites shall see her, they will say, She is his wife, and they will seek to slay thee for the sake of obtaining thy wife. Let Sarai thy wife therefore say unto them, He is my kinsman, and thy soul shall live. For thou art the cedar, O Abram, and Sarai is the palm tree, and this is the interpretation of the dream. For through the act of thy wife thou shalt be saved, and the way will be opened for thee to preach the mysteries of reverence in the court of Pharaoh, sovereign of Mitsrayim. For these Mitsrites are thy kindred of the seed of Eber, and it is my will that the truths of the everlasting berakah should be brought to them. The writings of Abraham, chapter 63. Now I had heard while I dwelt in Haran that some of the seed of Eber had entered into Mitsrayim and driven the seed of Ham to the south and taken possession of the land. But these followed not after the Elohim of their father Eber, but worshipped mighty ones, even as did my father Terach, but they followed not after the abominations of Nimrod. Now these Ivri were of the seed of Hadoram, the son of Yoktan, the son of Eber. And Yoktan was the brother of Peleg, and Eber was the son of Shelach, the son of Arpachshad, the son of Shem. Wherefore Yahweh had sent me to preach the berakah unto these who had departed from the Elohim of their fathers. The writings of Abraham, chapter 64. Wherefore I awakened my wife Sarai, and I said unto her, I have had a dream of Yahweh. Tell it to me, she said, that I may know what it is. Therefore I related unto her the dream and all that Yahweh had said to me concerning it, and I added, When the men of the land shall inquire of thee, saying, Who is this who accompanieth thee? Say unto them simply, He is my kinsman. Thus shall my soul live, and Yahweh will use their love for thee as a means whereby the berakah shall be preached among them. Fear not to do this thing, for they will neither defile thee, contrary to thy covenants, nor slay me, but all shall come to pass to the esteem of our Elohim. The writings of Abraham, chapter 65. Sarai, my wife, was fearful when she heard of the danger through which we must pass, and wept that night before Yahweh, but she placed her trust in him, and was comforted by his Ruah Ha'Qodesh. The next day we moved on across the 7 branches of the river, and proceeded toward Phoan, where Pharaoh dwelt. But I kept Sarai hidden until we reached Phoan, for it was in the home of Pharaoh that Yahweh purposed to use her great beauty to open the heart of Pharaoh unto the work of Elohim. When we reached the city of Phoan, 3 of Pharaoh's officers met us, and I brought Sarai forth to sit at my right hand while I gave them audience. And according to the word of Yahweh, while I attempted to explain unto them our having come there because of the famine in the land of Canaan, and that we sojourned among them, they kept bestowing compliments upon Sarai for her great beauty and wisdom and the luster of her countenance. The writings of Abraham, chapter 66. When the men departed from me, they went directly into the presence of Pharaoh, and when they had eaten with him, he had good wine brought forth. While they drank together, they began to speak unto him of what had transpired, but all they could speak of were the beauties of Sarai. How beautiful is the woman Sarai, they said, who sitteth at Abram's right hand. How comely is the shape of her face, how delicate and fine spun are her tresses, how beautiful her eyes, how delicate is her nose, and the whole luster of her countenance, how fair are her breasts, and how comely withal is her complexion. How comely too are her arms, and how perfect her hands, how pleasing are her hands to behold, how lovely her palms, how long and slender her fingers, how comely are her feet, how well rounded her thighs. None of the maidens and none of the brides that enter the bride chamber are fairer than she. Her beauty is greater than all other women, and she excels them all. Moreover, along with all this beauty, she hath great wisdom, and the workmanship of her hands is fair indeed. The writings of Abraham, chapter 67. When he heard these words, Pharaoh lusted after Sarai, and he sent his servants to fetch her to him. Knowing it to be the will of Yahweh, I let her go, although my heart was grieved within me. When Pharaoh saw her, his lust grew within him, for he was overcome by her beauty, and he took her into his household as his wife, and sent men to slay me, that I might not rise up to claim her. But Sarai, seeing these things, said unto Pharaoh, He is but my kinsman. Wherefore Pharaoh called back his men, and my life was spared. The writings of Abraham, chapter 68. But Lot and I and all our household spent that night in prayer before Yahweh for Sarai, that she might accomplish her mission, and that she might not be defiled contrary to her covenants. And I stood with my arms stretched out toward the Shamayim after the Kodesh order of Elohim, and I said, Baruch art thou, O Yahweh, the Most High Elohim, Adonai of all worlds, and Adonai and ruler over all things. I know that thou dost rule over all the sovereigns of the earth, executing judgment upon them in righteousness, even as thou didst save me from the evil designs of the mighty sovereign Nimrod. Now do I complain before thee concerning Pharaoh of Phoan, sovereign of Mitsrayim, who hath violently abducted my wife Sarai from me. Wreak justice upon him in my behalf, and let me behold thine hand wax mighty against him and against all his household, and let him not be able this night to defile my wife contrary to her covenants. Let them come to know, O Yahweh, that thou art Yahweh of all the sovereigns of the earth, and the ruler of all men. For this cause did I suffer Sarai to go among them according to thy counsel. The writings of Abraham, chapter 69. And Elohim hearkened unto my prayer, and withheld his Ruach from the Mitsrites, that none of them were able to come at their wives that night. In the morning, consternation reigned throughout the land of Mitsrayim, for no man had been able to lie with his wife all that night. Pharaoh also was greatly perplexed, for although his lust toward Sarai had grown throughout the night, he had been unable to satisfy that lust because of the curse of Elohim which rested upon him. Therefore he summoned all of his wise men and the physicians of his household, but none could heal him, and all had suffered the same affliction. The writings of Abraham, chapter 70. Then the Ruach of Yahweh fell upon Sarai, and she said, My master, it is indeed a sad matter that this affliction should be upon thee. My kinsman Abram is a man full of wisdom and of the Ruach of our Elohim. Send for him, therefore, and he shall tell thee how to be delivered from these bonds, that thou mayest freely take me to thyself. Now this she said at the direction of Yahweh our Elohim, and Yahweh softened Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened unto her words, and he sent Shulem, one of his chief ministers, unto my camp. The writings of Abraham, chapter 71. When Shulem arrived in camp, he was, according to my directions, went to the tent of Lot, and when he had entered the tent, he bowed before Lot, and said, My master Pharaoh and all the males of the land of Mitsrayim have been cursed, that they are unable to come at their wives. But it hath been told Pharaoh by his handmaiden Sarai, that her kinsman Abram is a man full of wisdom and of the Ruach of your Elohim. Let him therefore come and lay his hands upon my master Pharaoh, and pray for him that he may be healed and live. But Lot said to him, As long as his wife Sarai remains with the sovereign, my uncle Abram will not be able to pray for him. Be off thou, and tell the sovereign to release the woman to her husband. Then he will pray for him, and he will be healed. The writings of Abraham, chapter 72. When Shulem heard these words, he was amazed, and he went straightway to the sovereign. My sovereign, said he, this curse hath come on account of Sarai, the wife of Abram. Let Sarai be but restored to her husband Abram, and this curse will be lifted from off all the males of Mitsrayim. Upon hearing these words, the sovereign asked Sarai, saying, Is this thing so? Yea, my master, she replied. And it is done that thou mightest behold the power of Elohim. For when thine heart lusted after me, thou shouldst have asked, and not taken me by force. But this is done that the esteem of Elohim might be revealed, that thou shouldest turn from the worship of dumb mighty ones to the worship of the true and living Elohim. The writings of Abraham, chapter 73. Hearing these words, Pharaoh summoned me to him, and when I entered his presence, he asked, What is this that hath been done? For I have taken Sarai to wife, while she was yet your wife, and for this thing a curse hath fallen upon me and all males in the land of Mitsrayim. Therefore pray for me that this curse may be removed from us. According to Pharaoh's request, I laid my hands upon him and prayed over him, and he and all the males of Mitsrayim were healed. The writings of Abraham, chapter 74. When the sovereign had been berakah, he was recovered, and he praised Yahweh for his recovery. Wherefore I took him into his garden and immersed him in the name of Yahweh, and all his household with him. And when I had berakah him again, Sarai came before him, and he knew that he had been healed, for the Ruach of Elohim fell upon him with this testimony, and the witness thereof was sure. The writings of Abraham, chapter 75. Then Pharaoh arose and praised Yahweh, and proclaimed to all his people that they should worship the Most High Elohim who had healed them, and he desired to enter into a covenant of eternal brotherhood with me, that I should be his father and he should be my son. Wherefore I said unto Pharaoh, Put forth thine hand upon my thigh, and I will make thee swear before Yahweh, the Elohim of the Shamayim and earth, that thou shalt be true to me, and thine heirs to mine heirs forever. And I shall receive thee unto myself, to be my son and brother, to inherit all the berakah of mine house, and to bear my kehunah forever. Wherefore Pharaoh put his hand upon my thigh, and swore to me according to this oath. And when he had sworn, Lot sealed him mine that he should be my son in time and eternity, and Pharaoh rejoiced therein. The writings of Abraham, chapter 76. And the sovereign clothed me in his own robes, and seated me upon his throne, placing his own crown upon my head, and his scepter in my hand. And I did teach him and his people in all the mysteries of reverence from first to last. For Pharaoh did introduce me into the Hekel, which had been built by the fathers, commenced by father Sheth, and completed by father Shem after the great flood. And therein I did officiate in the rites and ordinances of the house of Yahweh. And Pharaoh made all matters right with Sarai, and he baraked her with the outpouring of his spirit, and she was baruch in his presence. And he gave unto her Hagar, his own daughter, also to be her companion, and to Hagar he gave many gifts. And I was 7 years in the land of Mitsrayim, teaching the berakah, and administering unto Pharaoh and his household, and all the Mitsrites, the berakah rites and ordinances of the berakah, with the power thereof. And I established among them the order of the fathers and the kehunah thereof, until the name of Yahuwah was esteemed throughout the land of Mitsrayim. And I taught the people the nature of the Shamayim and of the earth, and the plan of deliverance, and the berakah of Yahuwah unto those who serve him in purity of heart, and to believe on the BЄn of Elohim, who should come to make an atonement for their sins. And so great was the power of Elohim among us, that in time all of the Mitsrites had turned from their idolatry to the worship of the true Elohim, and I and my people had cause to rejoice in the fruits of labors.